So the task was simple. Danny Higginbotham and Mark Ogden, give us your top 5 Manchester United players in the Premier League era. 3 were the same, 2 were very different. First of all, rate each other's 5. Danny Higginbotham, what do you make of Mark Ogden's quintet?
Yeah, I think, like I say, to a certain extent, we're on the same page with Giggs, with Scholes, with Keane. But then I'm looking at and thinking to myself, Schmeichel and Beckham, 2 unbelievable players and United legends. But I think there are players that are more just than Schmeichel. Because what I always look at is, for example, if you have someone like Schmeichel, has he been replaced since? Was he replaced since? And I think Van der Sar did eventually replace him, was an outstanding player. And then I think since Beckham, we've obviously had Ronaldo along the way as well. So those would be the only 2 that I would probably question as in terms of the top 5 players.
Oggy, what about Danny's top 5?
Yeah, Eric Cantona, Cristiano Ronaldo, 2 of the most important players in Man United's history. You can't argue. We haven't picked Wayne Rooney. I haven't picked, so many other players. But let's be honest, Ruud van Nistelrooy, these great players. But, for me, Peter Schmeichel was the best goalkeeper of the Premier League era, probably the best keeper I've ever seen. He may be the best keeper of all time. I think if you're the best that the world has ever seen, how can you not be in the top 5 of any club's, best players? I mean, Schmeichel was a huge, huge part of United's success in the 90s. It was 10, 20 years ahead of his time as a goalkeeper. Now, I think goalkeepers have to be, remembered at times. And as for David Beckham, I think United got 7, 8 fantastic years out of Beckham. The unfortunate thing for David is that in the years subsequent, he went to Real Madrid and went to LA Galaxy maybe too soon. The end of his career probably overshadowed the beginning of his career when he was a fantastic player that won loads of trophies, scored lots of goals. He became more of a celebrity footballer towards the end, and I think that's kind of overshadowed what he really did. And Ronaldo's been a great player for Real Madrid, but I think his best days were after United. Beckham's best days were certainly at Old Trafford. And Cantona, Eric Cantona was a catalyst for United's success in the 90s, but Beckham took his shirt as number 7. I think over the years he had a similarly big impact.
Danny, what were the most important things that you took into account when doing the top 5? Because it's very difficult. How do you compare a goalkeeper with a striker? I suppose, as Mark was saying, you need that top quality goalkeeper because he's worth how many points a season? A goal scorer is worth how many points a season from his goals? Do you look back now and think, yeah, maybe I should have put someone like Schmeichel in my team?
No, but there is obviously an argument for it. But I look at the Cantona situation in particular, and there was so many different facets as to why I chose him. He came to the club at a time when they hadn't won a title for 26 years, and everybody else's supporters were telling United about that. He joined, and I think they were 8 points adrift of top place. And any top club, any club that wants to win a league, no matter where you are in the world, you have to have players with arrogance. And he had that arrogance about him. But what he did as well, he came in at a time when the younger players were given an opportunity. So I think that season, Butt, Scholes and Gary Neville, they were given their debut. And I think Cantona, as much as he completely changed the dynamics of the club, he also helped the younger players come through. They ended up winning the league that season by 10 points. I think he got 64 goals in 143 games. But it was just what he did. As a young United supporter at the time watching, it was incredible to see that when he was on the pitch, people talk about leading leaders on the pitch. He led by example, no matter the situation. Whenever the chips were down, so to speak, it was always find Eric and he will do something for the team. And to think that he was only at the club probably, I think, for 4 full seasons, maybe 4.5 in total. They still sing his name now. To have the privilege to have watched him in training, to have actually trained with him, for him to be the first one out, last one in, it was just absolutely incredible. And it was a team that ended up being, the final piece of the jigsaw. And I'll never forget Alan Hansen match the day after United had been thoroughly beaten by Aston Villa in the first game of the Premier League season. Everybody says you don't win anything with kids. Cantona was one of the main players that season, and he helped the younger players bed in. And I just think the effect that he had to get United where they were for a long time after that, he was one of the main players to set Manchester United on their way.
That's interesting. That's how we're going to end this one, because we asked you for your 5 best in the Premier League era from Old Trafford. But if I was to ask you for one, and you were talking about importance of certain players, including Cantona. Your most important player for Manchester United since 1992. Basically, you take him out of that team, and there's no way they would have won those 13 titles. You're allowed one answer. Who, Mark Ogden to begin with, then Danny Higginbotham, is your most important Manchester United player of the Premier League era?
Ryan Giggs. Because he played more games, he won more titles, he was a winger, he was a midfielder, he was a leader, he was a creator. Again, people that look at Giggs for the end of his career when he was slowing down a bit, but 20-odd years as a top-flight player, Ryan Giggs is a freak of nature.
I can't disagree. With that. I think he made his debut at 17. And not only that, for him to remain at a club, something like 24 seasons, for him to remain at one of the top clubs in the world and be a regular, whilst you had the great Sir Alex Ferguson continuously changing the team and rebuilding the team, is unbelievable. And when you listen to interviews that the likes of Beckham, the likes of the Nevilles, Scholes, but when you listen to their interviews, Giggs paved the way for them. And let's not forget, before Giggs, there was Lee Sharp, and he had to get Lee Sharp out of the way, and he eventually managed to do that. So, yeah, I've got to agree 100%. When you look at Manchester United throughout the Premier League story, it has to be Ryan Giggs and what he did at the club.
It's kind of fitting that we end with both of those two agreeing, because that was the production memo. Just make sure they agree with all their picks. It wasn't the production memo. You wanted them to disagree. Okay then. Oops.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.